Hello and welcome back to GRAF. This is Rob Shaw, and today I want to answer a couple of questions that were sent to me after my last podcast. My last podcast was on dairy production systems, and I had a few questions sent to me, so I'm going to answer those at the same time as discussing one of those systems, the high input, high output system. Let me share my screen and we'll go from there. So today I'm going to be talking about the high input, high output system. The question I received after the last podcast was from Stephen. In Zimbabwe, we mainly house our cows 24/7. The only thing we don't house full time are the dry cows, the replacement stock, and the bull. What sort of production system is this? What would you call it? Well, I would call it a high input, high output system. If you remember, that's following North American principles, Californian practices. The aim is a high yield per cow. You end up with year-round calving and a pretty level milk profile. No land is required. All the feed is trucked in and all the waste is trucked away. And as a result, you end up with a very high working capital requirement. But the question is, are you a high output or medium output? Just because you're housing your cows all the time, it doesn't mean you're achieving those high outputs. And what is a high output? Well, I would suggest you need 35 litres plus of milk per day to justify the name of a high input, high output system. And you need those high levels of output to dilute the full-time housing cost, the cost of providing all the feed and taking all the waste away. You also end up with higher cow depreciation, higher labor cost. Your cows just won't last as long. They're working really hard. You'll struggle to get 4 or 5 lactations. Your labor cost is higher because you're constantly having to feed the cows and take the waste away. And you have some very expensive buildings that will depreciate and need repairs and maintenance. So, is it the most profitable system? Well, all the benchmarking will show that a high input, high output system is the most profitable. However, it does rely on a high milk price year round because you have a level milk profile come summer, come winter, come the wet season, come the dry season. You're producing a pretty level profile of milk. It also requires very high standards of management. If you're not achieving the best physical and financial performance, you will not be the most profitable system. Another point that James brought up was cow security from both theft and disease. He said, Rob, if your cows are housed all the time in a shed, they're much safer from the point of view of theft and much safer from the point of view of catching an infectious disease that affects their production. Well, that all depends on the country you're operating in and the risk in that country. But certainly, I can't argue with that. He also said, Rob, why would you mess about with a grazing-based system when you could just run a high input, high output system and have half the number of cows for the same milk output? But it's not quite that simple because you do have higher production costs with a high input, high output system. It's not just a case of keeping the same production costs, but halving the number of cows. So is it the most profitable system? Well, that all depends on which country you're operating in. It depends on the demand for milk and the market for milk in that country. And it depends very much on your physical and financial performance. So if you'd like to discuss this with me, please contact me on LinkedIn and we can talk about it further in your situation. Thanks for now.